We don't know. So after a lot of thought, I realized that the source of the universe, and now this is not a debated idea, the source of the universe, whatever we call it, is infinite. The universe is also infinite or almost infinite. The physical universe that we observe with dark energy and all that. But the source is infinite. Now science calls that the singularity. And science calls that the superposition of particles, which is correct scientifically. But if you go to our Indian traditions, that source is the infinite that we call Brahman. And so it's actually not a superposition of particles, it's a superposition of possibilities of experience. Same thing, one is quantum, one is qualia. Quantum is measurement, qualia is experience. So it's the superposition of possibilities of experience is infinite, and it's a combination of zeros and ones. So what we call the universe, the visible universe, is a digital workshop outside space-time in something that is infinite. Whatever we call it. You can call it Brahman, you can call it singularity, it depends on your bias, materialistic bias or consciousness bias. So infinite creates the universe as a combination of zeros and ones. The difference between you and your brain and your body-mind and this chair and this microphone is just a different combination of zeros and ones. The universe is sourced in a digital workshop outside of space and time that manufactures not only our universe but possibly infinite universes just through zeros and ones. So I realized that the formula for creation is not E is equal to mc squared. It's infinity is equal to 0 is equal to 1. So infinity, if you take 1 divided by 0, you get infinite. So here we are. The infinite is producing this, which in Sanskrit is called Brahmad. So the deeper reason for writing digital dharma is, when we're looking for our place in the universe, which is dharma, only digital technology will help you do it. Only digital technology. Now we have large language models. So, 40,000 years ago, humans deviated from the other species by creating a language for narrative, which we're using right now. But then we created languages like money, economics, history, biology, physics, mathematics, anthropology, religion, spirituality, all languages, by the way, they're languages. No one knows how language evolved. If you ask the Western world, no one knows how language evolved. In India, we say Saraswati and we get over it. So it's a divine gift, not from us, but from the source of the universe. So large language models now, which combine every possible human language, have access to the not only database, but the wisdom of humanity for the last 40,000 years since the cognitive revolution. And there's no human being, no Shakespeare, no Adi Shankara, nobody, no Rishi, who will have the access to the entire history of human thought in every language model that you can do. So this is a leapfrog in our biological evolution and our also social evolution. The first revolution from hunter-gatherers was the agricultural age, 12,000 years ago. Second, scientific revolution, 500 years ago. Age of technology, 100 years ago. Digital age, not even 30 years. It's leapfrogging. You will not be able to imagine what the human species will be in a few decades, I would dare to say. Because every experience you have, and now we have this access, it changes the neural landscape of your brain through epigenetic activity. You mentioned epigenetics, which is right now as we're speaking, this part of our brain is being activated genetically in the neural landscape. If you were televising this, then those people in Africa or everywhere, their neural landscape would be changing. So who are we? I mean, what is going on?
So what is the reality then?
There's no such thing. It's a human construct. Reality is infinite, which is incomprehensible, which is spaceless, which is timeless, which is borderless. So if it's borderless, it doesn't have a border, it's formless. You know, as Tagore said, in the playhouse of infinite forms, the only thing you need to focus on is the formless. Because without the formless, which is infinite, there's no zeros and ones.
Next time my wife asks me something, I'll give this answer. But
sorry it took me so long. I'm sorry.
No, fascinating.
Deviated.
Yeah, with the wisdom you have and the experience you have, and this searching that you're still doing, it's interesting that you shared that. You know, many years back I was told that we know what we know, but we also know what we don't know, but there is another dimension. We don't even know what we don't know.
Yeah, but in philosophy that's called epistemology, you know, the limitations of human knowing. Because our human brain has only evolved, the cortical brain has only evolved in the last maybe 15,000 to 20,000, again, because of language. Without language, we would have the same brain as a monkey. So all animals have a language, but we have language for creating these models, which then appear as reality, which of course in India we call Maya. But if you look at the word Maya, it's the same thing as matrix. Maya, matrix, time, matter, meter, music, mother, matrika. It's the same. It's the womb of creation. So it's the trickster that tells you this is the real world, but this is a simulation. This is a VR, and we are part of the VR. That's why VR also works. And the next revolution is not going to be pharmaceuticals. It's going to be first electroceuticals, then digiceuticals, and then metaceuticals, because we are already in the metaverse, which is Maya. We don't call it Maya, and it's fine. You know, you can call it a simulation, you can call it a projection. If you're a yogi, you call it vrittis of sensations, images, feelings, thoughts. But actually, there's no universe. It's a human construct.
No, you know, if the universe is so big, which it is not even comprehensible.
Can't.
Right? And in your book, you have a chapter, Put Your Ego on Notice. I mean, there's so much happening in the world. Look at what's happening in the Middle East. Do the leaders of the world need advice from both sages and scientists?
They do, but they're not ready to listen. So it's a waste of time. I don't waste my time on leaders of the world. We need leaders, we spend time on children, because they're the future leaders.
So how does you're a leader, how do you put your ego on notice?
First, you realize that your ego is a fictional character. There's no such thing, you know. It's a fictional. If I ask you, who are you? You give me a name, which is totally arbitrary. My mother chose to call me Deepak. She could have called me Sushil. Okay, and everything else is arbitrary. It's your history, what we call karma, basically. But karma, again, sounds very esoteric, so it's the conditioned mind. And we are all conditioned differently. Economics, social status, parents, religion, history. So we attach to certain things, we call it me. And it's fictional. It's an imaginary story. And all the conflict in the world is about imaginary stories. You know, I'm Arab, you're Jewish, I'm Hindu, you're Muslim. It's all imagination. It's a story, basically. It's a model. It has no basis in fundamental reality, which is infinite. And what we call separation is actually differentiation. It's not the same thing. Separation creates anxiety, but differentiation creates culture, you know. And right now, we know if you want maximum diversity, and this is something leaders should know, but they don't, that if you have maximum diversity, you have shared vision, you complement each other's strengths, and you have some kind of an emotional or spiritual bond, you can solve any problem, and you can discover anything, you know. So this is what we need right now. Maximum diversity of education, maximum diversity of gender, maximum diversity of race, maximum diversity of technology, maximum diversity of humanitarians, but most importantly, maximum diversity of storytellers, because the world is created by our stories. That's the only thing that differentiates human species from other species. We are storytellers. And Ramayana is a story. The Mahabharata is a story. The Iliad is a story. The Homer story. Everything is a story. To be human is a story. And so right now our story is divisive. It's full of conflict. It is racist. It is bigoted. It is prejudiced. And it has no creativity whatsoever. It's a recycle. That's what karma is. You recycle the same story. And so karma becomes an algorithm of zeros and ones. You have to break the algorithm. Like Ramanujan, when he was asked, where do you get your theorems from? He said, I don't know. Saraswati gives me. Where do you get anything from? You don't know. Okay, so there's a theorem in mathematics called Gödel's theorem, where if you have a sufficient number of theorems that are logical, there's always a theorem that is illogical. It doesn't make sense. And it's a break in the algorithm. That if the universe is mathematical, then the universe is creative, because mathematics always has breaks in logic. So that was Ramanujan's genius, which totally befuddled the greatest mathematicians. Bertrand Russell was totally nonplussed by Ramanujan. He didn't know how to explain. He said, where do you get these? He said, Saraswati, he would roll his eyes. Okay, the only people who understood this was, in the Western world, was Einstein to some extent, not completely, because Einstein was what they call a realist. He thought the world was real. And there's a very interesting conversation, actually, that most people are not aware of. When Rabindranath Tagore was traveling around the world after his Nobel Prize, Bertrand Russell actually went to his lecture and he reported in the Saturday Evening Post or something. He said, bullshit, it's usual nonsense, because he was, an elitist British snob. But Einstein was smarter. He's invited Tagore to Berlin. This is before the war, the Second World War. And they had a conversation. And the conversation, which I've written about in my books, You Are the Universe, in the conversation, Einstein said there's the scientific universe and there's your universe in consciousness. And Tagore corrected him. He said, no, the scientific universe is also in consciousness. Theories are conceived in consciousness. Experiments are designed in consciousness. I'm not directly translating, but paraphrasing. But in the end, actually, Einstein conceded to Tagore. He said, science is my religion. It's another story. And it is a good story. But, we have forgotten some of these. We got so trapped by the success of materialism that we sacrifice wisdom for knowledge.
Absolutely. So is there any hope in Middle East?
Is there any hope in the world? I mean, we talk about climate change, talk about war in the Middle East, war in Ukraine, war and terrorism globally, social economic justice, radical differences in economic justice, if you want to call it that, chronic disease, mental depression. Unless we have a radical shift in our consciousness, we are sleepwalking to extinction. And I'm not saying that as a pessimist, I'm saying that as a realist. The way we are, in the United States, the conversation is so banal that people don't even, in the midst of all these hurricanes, there are still climate change deniers, in the US, and they still won't ratify the climate treaties, etc., or if Trump comes back.
He famously said, Trump said that climate change is a hoax.
Yeah.
I mean, he's wrong about a lot of things. This one is definitely wrong.
No, but he doesn't say things that he might even know what he's talking about. In 1990s, early 1990s, I, along with another woman who was a close friend of mine, we did a full-page New York Times ad on climate change. And we had Trump sign it. He signed it. He said, yes, you're right. So, he doesn't know what
He's a pragmatist.
I think he's cognitively declined.
He should come to a longevity workshop.
He wouldn't pass the test to enter.
Now, staying on the digital dharma, you talk about journaling, and using chatbots for journalism, right? Of course, that is marrying the old age practice of journaling with technology. Give us a sense of why journaling in the era of chatbots is still so cathartic.
You see, when I say journaling, I use the word for everyday consumers, if you want to call them that. But journaling is a way for reflection. Contemplation. Inquiry. And the highest inquiry is what we call Atma Vichar. Who am I? What is, the basis of existence? But now, because we have these emotional chatbots, I can ask these questions and get an answer from Ramana Maharishi, or Vivekananda, or Aurobindo, or Buddha, or Mahavir, or Jesus Christ, and then I can make my own decision. Not that I have to buy their own, but now I can build on the shoulders of all these great thought leaders or luminaries that have existed for 40,000 years. So that's why that chapter.
Now, also, we are doing this, we could have done this over Zoom. We are doing this face-to-face. I shook your hand, I talked to you, I looked at your body language. What about human touch? And again, you've talked about the science of molecules, oxytocin, and, when you touch, it produces certain chemicals which create a positive emotion, if I may use that. So how do you remain human-centric in the era of technology, AI, and bots?
Once you understand that, you see, technology is there are only two things that make us different from other species. The first is language, narrative, create models, because without language we wouldn't have science or philosophy or anything science. All this multiple, AI is a language model, as you know. But because we have an opposable thumb, we deviated from monkeys. We started making tools. We made a hammer. You can kill a person with a hammer, but in the hands of a carpenter, it's an amazing tool. We made a knife. You can kill a person with a knife, but in the hands of a surgeon, it heals. We created fire. It can burn down the forest, but you can't have your cuisine today, and you wouldn't, in fact, if we hadn't discovered fire, you wouldn't have the industrial age. You wouldn't have the steam engine. So every step of the way, we are tool makers. That is the origin of the word technology. And the universe is a technology workshop. So we're not there yet with the immersive experience. But as soon as we extend, see, AI, and my CEO Punacha is an expert, more than I am, but AI is just the beginning. You're soon going to have ambient AI, you're going to have VR, you're going to have XR, you're going to have MR, you're going to have AR, which is all extensions of the Maya, basically. And we are part of the Maya. And actually, you will be able to have an experience as good as this. In fact, we did a conference in Florida 3 years ago, where I was in Florida, and there was, who was that actress?
Fast and Furious.
Huh?
Fast and Furious.
She's a very famous actress. She was in LA, And you couldn't tell the difference. We were sitting like you and me. And of course, the touch part is missing right now. But that also, with what is called haptics, is going to die. So in a few years, you and me could have this experience totally with all the five senses, which is what we experience as, we call it reality, but it's a combination of five senses, five qualias that makes the difference between everything.
Now, you always said that, when someone comes to you for coaching, which you do much lesser than you used to, you do more workshops and more retreats because you can make a larger impact. You said the questions one must ask oneself is, what is my purpose? What do I enjoy? Is it getting me closer to a goal? And in the book also you talk about, in chapter 4, the art of the prompt. In AI, prompts are like asking questions to yourself. So give us a sense of how can we do the right prompts, and how can we ask the right question, and what are the right questions to ask?
It depends on you. You see, if we look at the hierarchy of needs, Abraham Maslow, everybody gives credit to Abraham Maslow, no question. He was one of the greatest transpersonal psychologists. But he spoke about five levels of needs. Now, what most people don't know, that before he died, in his notes, he was going beyond self-actualization to self-transcendence. So what Abraham Maslow created the whole world of transpersonal psychology based on the hierarchy of needs is basically the 7 chakras. Okay, the first chakra is about survival and safety. The second chakra is about sensual experience. The third is transformation and power. The fourth is love and belongingness. The fifth is creative expression. The sixth is insight, intuition, imagination. And the seventh is transcendence. That's what humans, so what is dharma? It's your best life possible, ultimately leading to transcendence, fulfill every level of need. So depending on what you're looking for, you can ask the right prompt. Okay, the prompt, the question embodies the answer. And the answer is available through the wisdom of humanity that has preceded us and is continuing to evolve and will continue to evolve. If there's one thing that's real, it's evolution. But evolution keeps pace just a little ahead of entropy. Now again, I like to go back to our culture because it's all been explained. Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, right? So you have the infinite creator, you have the sustainer, and you have the destroyer. That's entropy, creativity, and sustenance, basically. So if you understand that the mechanics always is that the entropy is slightly behind, not too much, slightly behind. That's why we see the chaos right now. Maybe it's a transition point. When water starts to boil, becomes steam, there's a lot of turbulence. So anytime there's what is called a transition in an ecosystem, and this time we're talking about the whole planet as an ecosystem, there are entropic forces. And where this goes is unpredictable because that's also a principle of quantum mechanics, quantum uncertainty. And that's why we have creativity without uncertainty. If creation was an algorithm only, then there would be nothing for you and me to do. But if creation is punctuated by leaps of creativity, we could be at a transition point. And it doesn't actually matter if there are 2 trillion galaxies, then Karma Bhumi, or planet Earth, is one little speck of one grain.
You make us think.
By the way, in Yoga Vasishtha, there's a phrase, and there are Pandits here who are much more, Sampanamji and even Pandeyji, they know much more than I do in their own domain. But in Yoga Vasishtha, there's one sutra, infinite universes come and go in the vast expanse of consciousness like motes of dust in a beam of light. So Vasishtha is sitting in his cave looking at a beam of light coming through the roof, and he sees these motes of dust. He says there are infinite universes like this. Current mathematics suggests that there are infinite universes.
Beautiful, you make us think. You know, you've been talking of integrative medicines for almost 5 decades, and almost 4 decades back, at the age of 45, you gave up your medical practice, if I may say, and then you went to a humanistic practice or a consciousness practice, whatever word you want to use. We use labels in life to make it simple. And what is the future of medicine and health? Is it Ayurveda? Is it AI and Ayurveda coming together? It's clearly not hospitals. It's not
a future. Well, just to look at what our current science is, less than 5% of chronic disease is due to what are called fully penetrant genes, which means they guarantee the disease. So if somebody has a BRCA gene that's for breast cancer, they're going to get breast cancer. Angelina Jolie, the actress, she had the BRCA gene, and she had preventive mastectomy because otherwise she would have gotten breast cancer. I'm giving that example, but that is true of every disease. Every disease, about 5% or probably less, 4 to 5%. We had actually a hearing in Congress on this in the United States with my co-author Rudy Tanzi. Less than 5% of disease is guaranteed by genetic mutation. So mutation is a genetic error. It's a spelling mistake in the DNA or the nucleotides. And for that, by the way, there's a revolution too. We just had a conference 2 weeks ago. Sumant Kulkarni is an Indian-American geneticist who's the head of the CRISPR project. So he's already figured it out. You can cut and paste genes like you cut and paste your email. So you can, metaphorically speaking, you can read the barcode of a gene, delete it, put the right gene, voila, the disease is cured. But that's less than 5%. 95% is epigenetic, which means above the genes there's a sheath of proteins, and these proteins are called histones, and DNA is wrapped around them. So imagine that this is a histone and DNA is wrapped around that. Every experience changes the gene activity. So imagine a computer above this room, and it knew what you needed. And this room was your house. You went to the kitchen, it would turn on your microwave. You went into your bedroom, it would turn off the lights because it knew how to sleep. You went into the living room, it turned on the TV set. So that's epigenetics. The consciousness is the master computer that is regulating your body depending on your needs. Eating, breathing, digestion, metabolism, elimination, sensory experience, thoughts, feelings, emotions, desires, anxiety, stress, everything affects gene activity. This is only 20 years old, by the way, this science. Furthermore, less than 1% of your genes are human. So you have 25,000 genes, half from your mother, half from your father. But you have 2 million bacterial genes, which are from the soil, which we are ruining, by the way, with industrial food production. 1 teaspoon of soil under the Amazon has more microbial diversity than the entire planet. 1 teaspoon. And that's the source of life. So the source of life is bacteria. And you have in your body what we call millions, 20 to, depending on where you live, urban, contaminated forest, whatever, you have millions of bacterial genes. So between the bacterial genes, the epigenetic activity, your genes, and then what time do you sleep, what time do you eat, your biological rhythms, as I said, eating, breathing, digestion, metabolism, elimination, sensory experience, mental experience, emotional experience, relationships, they all modulate your gene activity. So the future is, you take the principles of Ayurveda is very good because it's a qualia medicine. It's not a quantum medicine. Qualia means quality of experience. You regulate your body through daily season routines, through the right food, through panchakarma, through rasayana. That is very good. But it's not enough, okay? It's not enough. You have to actually look much more at what science is telling us about how these genes are altered. And because we have technology, right now I'm wearing about 5 sensors. Some you can't see. So right now, as I'm speaking to you, my heart rate is being monitored, my heart rate variability, galvanic skin response, last night's peace, and blood sugar, everything is being monitored. And with the technology, the way it's going, it will know in a moment, live, what you're doing that is disturbing your homeostasis right now, and what you can do in the moment to correct it. So we conduct these longevity retreats because right now, the fastest growing segment of the human population, fastest growing, you won't know this unless you look up the data, is over the age of 100. That means more people are living longer, but unfortunately they're getting Alzheimer's, they're getting heart disease, they're getting all kinds of diseases. People don't die of old age, they die of disease. Of course, they die of old age too. There's something called the Hayflick limit, which says about 120 years is after that the genes stop replicating or the cells stop dividing. Even that may be premature, but we know theoretically. And also you see people 120 is hardly. You do see, they're documented. Japan, India.
In the blue zone.
Yeah, in the blue zones. So you see that. So it's not longevity, it's health span. How long can you live healthy? Now, of course, in our tradition, we say you should choose your death through Mahasamadhi. Now we think, some rishis were able to achieve that. But there's a science now which says you should be able to do that. If you can tackle the 5% through gene editing, and you can tackle the others through what we call lifestyle, basically it's lifestyle. But now there's nothing that is not measurable. Anything that experience you have, you can measure it. So I think the future of well-being is very promising if we don't blow it up with a nuclear war or something like that. The future of well-being is very promising. It's personalized, it's predictive, it's participatory, it's preventive, it's even reversible. Heart disease and all these things are reversible.
Yes. Now, you said something very, very important, which is about the quality of life. You said in your books that it's also the environment in which. And there's stress for everyone. There's stress for performance, because we benchmark, we're in the era of social media. Stress is a good thing or a bad thing?
I'll share a story with you. So 1980 or so, I was at a conference at Harvard with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, and the conference was on stress. And there were all these experts, Benson and all the people talking about the biology of stress. And after everybody left, Maharishi called me and he whispered in my ear, "Kya hai ye stress? What are they talking about?" I said, "They're talking about stress." He says, "Kya hai? What is it?" I said, "It's perception of threat, psychological threat, financial threat in relationship." And he thought for a while, and then he said, "You mean resistance to existence?" And I thought that was absolutely brilliant. When you resist what's happening in the moment, you're stressed. But right now, what is there to be stressed about unless you're thinking about in the future, right? Something in the past. Does now have any stress?
I was thinking when I don't have the period I was supposed to get for you, Mr. Bakshi. I would say that's the honest thing.
So, there's also people these days, it's become a meme, live in the present moment. But, as soon as you say live in the present moment, that's time. See, this time. So, present moment is not presence. Presence is the infinite in every moment, which is consciousness, which is awareness, and it's absolutely, totally homeostatic. It's like samadhi. Okay, so in samadhi, there's no arrow of time. That is another thing. You know, all this longevity research, people are talking about longevity molecules and this and that, but nobody is talking about how do we see we metabolize not only food, we metabolize every experience. You're metabolizing this experience right now. Then you'll metabolize food. Then you'll watch a Bollywood movie. You'll metabolize that. You'll be thinking about that. You know, who did what to whom, etc., etc. So we metabolize experience, but that in which we metabolize experience is consciousness, which is infinite. So if you bring consciousness to the fore, there's no entropy of time. So again, Yoga Vaishishta, or one of these great scriptures, time is the consumer and we are its food. We are time's food. So the slower you experience time, and right now the world is on time sickness. मेरे पास time नहीं है. I'm running out of time. If you're continuously saying that, your internal dialogue will speed up, your biological metabolism will speed up, your body clock will speed up, your platelets will get jittery. If you have a heart attack, you run out of time. You know, you're just saying, I'm running out of time. Of course you're running out of time because you believe that there is something called time. But in consciousness, there's no time. It's presence. That's it. And let me ask somebody, let me make this clearer if you give me permission. Are you all enjoying this conversation? Yes. A little more enthusiasm, please. Yes. Okay. Now let me ask you the same question, but do not answer it till I raise my hand. Okay, same question, but don't answer it. Are you enjoying this conversation? Yes. So the question is a mental event. The answer is a mental event. In between is you, consciousness. It is constantly overshadowed by the mind. But okay, try it again. This time if I say, are you enjoying this? Just slip into it. In this consciousness, there's no time. Okay. That's why Rumi said, God's language is silence. Everything else is poor translation. So slip into the silence between the internal dialogue. That's samadhi, right now. You don't have to sit in a cave. There's questions. Somebody has a question.
Yeah, we'll take the question. Mr. Radu is a former bureaucrat, writes for Business World on economics and business. Definitely will bring you in. So you're saying you can increase the quality of your life by slowing down?
In yoga, we don't count life. We have a lot of yogis here. You don't count life in the number of years. You count life in the number of breaths and the number of heartbeats. Yogastha kuru karmani. Stay in that silence, perform action. Same thing as karma yoga.
Beautiful. You also have a chapter in the book called Bend and Bounce Back. I found
resilience.
Resilience, simply resilience. But why don't you expound on that in the way you do?
Again, yogic literature says infinite flexibility is the secret of immortality. So the flexibility is not just of body, because body is just an expression of consciousness. See, once again, people, in all the language, in all the conferences on mind-body, the essential problem is language. People they speak about different things, okay? So if you ask somebody to define the mind, they can't even tell you that, you know. You say, in science, there's no good definition of mind. Now, there is a good definition. The mind is an embodied and relational process that regulates the flow of energy and information in an ecosystem of living minds. The mind is a process. The mind is not here. It's a process. You say, where is the mind? There's no location. It's a process. It's in your body, it's in your brain, it's in our relationships. So it's embodied and relational. That's the mind. What is the body? It's a perceptual activity in the mind. There is no body unless you experience it through the mind. How do you experience it? Through the five senses. So the body is not a material object, it's a process also. And then mind, intellect, and ego are what we call sukshma sharir, okay, the subtle body. This is called sthul sharir, the prana and physical body. But they're both illusions, okay. The source is what we call jivatma, or you want to call it consciousness, or you go even beyond that, pure consciousness. Para. Pashanti, beyond that, all that. That is the superposition of possibilities. That's the infinite. So, bounce back means resilience in the body through yogic practice, which is called yoga asana. The reason it's called yoga asana, asana means seat. Seat of what? Awareness of consciousness. So every yoga asana is a seat of consciousness, if we teach it properly. Okay? And every yoga, see, in Patanjali, there's a very clear sequence, yama, niyama. So yama is social intelligence, niyama is emotional intelligence. And then straight, yoga asana, because this is easy to control, with movement, done with awareness. Then third, immediately, is pranayama, because pranayama, the breath is the connection between consciousness and biology and mind. Breath connects consciousness to mind and body. And so pranayama, and then immediately pratyahara, which is going to the source through withdrawal of the senses. Today we call it interoception. And then, only then, dharana, dhyana, samadhi, which is the culmination. So resilience is resilience in consciousness. Top-down approach. Okay, and if you do that, you bend and bounce back.
Beautiful, Dr. Chopra. You clearly believe in integrative well-being, if I may use the term. You have the background and the experience to be able to integrate that. But today there is a lot of toxic positivity on Instagram. There are many fake gurus, if I may say, or half-baked, definitely. What do you have to say that? I mean, is there a quick fix formula for stress, for relationships, for hope? What is your comment on that?
First of all, talking about fake, we are all fake. We are all authentic fakes. It depends on what level of fakery you are. Okay. So, there is, if we were not fakes, we wouldn't be having all these ideas and saying showmanship and who's better, who's worse, who has more money, who has more weapons. So, first of all, we are for stress. And is there an instant cure? And the instant cure is once you realize that it's all a show, you don't take it seriously. There's a gravesite I visited some time ago, and there was a beautiful sign on the gravesite. It said, "Where you are, I was. Where I am, you soon will be." Okay. So once you recognize that, you don't take life seriously. We have beautiful words in our language. Maya is the show and Leela is the play. And you say, why do children play? Well, they love to play. You can't get it to go. In this playhouse of infinite forms, I found the formless, but then there's another poem in Gitanjali. On the seashore of worlds, children play. Fishermen serve and fish, boats get sunk, wars happen, and children play. They build castles, they throw them away, and they build them again. And so we have forgotten how to play. So now all the thing is, how do we treat depression? How do we think? I would say play. And play is not a game, because game is you want to win. There's a purpose. In play, there's only creative joy. So I think the solution to stress is creative joy. And today, in fact, what we really need is a pandemic of joy right now. It's the only thing we need. And then we don't have to worry about this. And creativity is so fundamental in the, when we say God, what do we mean? Creator, right? You can't create if you're serious. You get a headache. So that's why, again, in this process of creativity, there's something called incubation. First there's intended outcome, then there's information gathering, then there's information analysis, then there's incubation. That is creative play. Whether you do yoga or whatever, listen to music, then there is insight, and then there is implementation, then there is inspiration. So creative play is both death and resurrection. You cannot have creativity without fundamental change in story. What we need right now is a new story, new context, new meaning, and new relationships, and an ecosystem of maximum diversity with shared vision. It can happen. We have a course, by the way. Let me promote our course. It's called The Soul of Leadership, which I taught for 14 years at Columbia and Business School and also at Kellogg. And in 2 weeks or so, it will be online, so you can do it online with all the instructions and so on. Creativity is the solution, and creative play is the solution. Unless we totally have a death of the old paradigm, and has happened periodically. Dinosaurs boiled up.
Evolution, you talk about evolution.
Evolution happens.
Dr. Chopra,
I congratulate him. He's read the book very thoroughly.
I like reading books.
Yeah,
It's easy.
seriously, you are bringing up things in the book which I had forgotten.
But again, in the book you talk about that wholeness is the ultimate healing. How does one achieve wholeness?
See, in our science, current science is what we call reductionist science. See, you say, okay, what is atoms, what are matter made of? Molecules. What is molecules made of? Atoms. What are particles, atoms made of? Particles. Till you get to the most fundamental level, and it all disappears. It becomes possibilities. So when you want to actually create something totally new, you have to get rid of every other story. Reductionism is you know more and more without knowing the rest. You have to ignore everything. If I want to know what is going in I'm a specialist, cardiologist. You're a neurologist. You're a gastroenterologist. Unless we communicate, I don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're doing. The body is not just the heart or the stomach or the nervous system. It's all of them functioning together. How does a human body think thoughts, play a piano, kill germs, remove toxins, make a baby all at the same time? All at the same time. It's not one thing. That's wholeness. Your body is doing eating, breathing, digesting, metabolism, thinking, and tracking the universe as its biological rhythms. You're a cosmic computer right now. That is wholeness. So again, in Sanskrit, the word is avidya. Avidya means ignorance. You have to ignore everything else to know this. So wholeness is getting rid of avidya.
Being present.
And allowing. Last niyama, Ishwar Pranidhana, however you define it. Reality is incomprehensible. Just surrender to it.
Beautiful. Dr. Chopra, we are 10 days away from your 78th birthday. You're young.
You mean chronologically, not biologically.
Sure. Sure. You achieved so much impact. I think you enjoy what you do. Confucius said you make your hobby your profession. In your case, your training as a doctor and then the evolution to who you are today. You achieved everything, impact, experiences, fame, and all the other material things. Is there something else for Dr. Chopra to achieve?
Yes, and that is our current science is incomplete. It only deals with what we call the object of observation. It doesn't deal with the modes of knowing, and it doesn't address the observer. So in every experience, there are three components: observer, observation, observed; knower, knowing, known; seer, scenery, seeing. So science isn't complete. So my goal right now for the remaining years of my life is at least lay the groundwork for a more complete science, which includes observer, observed, and observation, which means that unless we bring consciousness into the scientific world, we are basically dealing with a science that is so incomplete that it could lead to our extinction. See, we have modern capacities and we have medieval minds. We still have medieval minds.
We got to upgrade that.
You have to upgrade that, otherwise modern technology will destroy us. That's a genuine fear.
My last question before I bring in the audience, it's a very accomplished, eclectic audience, and we've kept a lot of time for Q&A, so we'll bring all of you in. You talk about well-being for the last 35 years that I've been following you. Possibly you've been talking about it earlier. And you talked about the components of well-being in almost everything you've done. Is there a modern mantra to well-being? Of course, sleep is part of that, nutrition, movement.
Yeah, I think it's, if you have the right intention, which we call sankalp, then well-being is a joyful, energetic body, a loving, compassionate heart, a creative, quiet mind, and lightness of spirit. That's the formula.
Beautiful. Please give Dr. Chopra a big round of applause. I think we'll take questions. Keep your questions short, and we'll start with you, Dr. Dadu. Can we have the mic to Dr. Dadu? Imani? Yes, Mr.
I think I should be audible.
Yes.
Dr. Chopra, I have three questions for you. I've read a lot of your books, followed you on LinkedIn, and I am a Shiv Bhakt and I read Gita every day. What I want to understand from you is, beyond Shiva and beyond Gita, and in Gita I want to mention 5 points. It talks about the right kind of speech, which is purposeful, beneficial, truthful. It talks about actions, systematic, detached. It talks about the kinds of food. It talks about our conduct. It talks about the evils. Conduct is austerity, charity, and sacrifice. Evil is lust, hunger, and greed. So beyond these things, is there anything more to understand? Number one. Number two, we have three kinds of wars in this world. I'll be very brief. There are three wars in the world. And if we look at the arithmetic of the war, let's take the biggest one. It's just a question of 250 hostages getting released. And the entire Gaza has been demolished. Lebanon has been demolished. Don't we understand the arithmetic of wars? Arithmetic even a child understands. I'm not able to understand why we don't understand the arithmetic of wars. My third question is, you mentioned entropy is increasing and therefore the problems.
No, creativity is increasing.
No, if creativity is increasing and entropy is reducing, then well-being should be natural. It should be growing every day. Why is mental health, as you're suggesting, creating more entropy than creation? Because if you look at the world and look at the startups and the creation and the phenomenal growth that's taking place, I mean, entropy is not even a percentage of that.
Dr. Babu. Okay, so first question about Bhagavad Gita, it's a complete user's manual for everything. There's no question, with everything, Raj Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and all the rules of right livelihood. User's manual for enlightenment. Easy question. Second question on the Gaza story, all wars are imaginary stories, as I said, and every side feels self-righteous. You will never, I did a meditation on YouTube for the hostages, and in 1 hour I lost, not that I care, but on Instagram I lost a few 100,000 followers, 1 hour doing a meditation for the victims. Then I did a meditation for Gazans, same thing happened. So you will never be able to convince another person that their story is wrong, because that story has been there since they were born. They were programmed into that story. And it's called karmic entrapment. They're trapped by their karma, whatever it is. Okay, and they don't know how to get out of it. So no amount of argument will do it. I do have a book, by the way, called Peace is the Way, and it's inspired by somebody, a philosopher called J. Musto, who said, there is no way to peace. Peace is the way. And there's a reason why ahimsa is the first yama. Okay, it's presence, peace. Patanjali says, when you're established in peace consciousness, everybody around you feels peace. So the only way to world peace is a critical mass of people who are peaceful, not Nobel Peace Laureates. Okay, they are activists and they are miserable. Okay, most of the peace laureates I've met have no peace in their own mind. They're only getting Nobel Prizes for peace. So there is no cure for peace unless we have a critical mass of people who practice ahimsa authentically. Okay. Third question, entropy and creativity. I don't know. Shiva is a mysterious thing. It might think that entropy is worthwhile. The human experiment failed. Let's try something else. Dinosaurs failed. We came. So Shiva is wiser than you and I.
Dr. Alphonse?
Yeah, on top of the... Take this. Thank you so much for inviting me to this, Dr. Chopra. I mean, you've been a huge influence on me as a growing up youngster, bureaucrat, politician. I'm plagued by a bit of contradiction. I don't come from a privileged background like you. My father was a school teacher. I grew up in a non-electrified village, studied at the kerosene lamp. I got 42% in my 10th board examination. I was called an idiot. I taught myself English. Eventually, I became a topper in the IAS. I was on the cover of Time magazine in 1994. I won the Best Collector Award multiple times. Won quit IAS, became an independent MLA, won the Best MLA Award, became a union minister. During my tenure as Tourism Minister of India from 2017.
What's the question, sir?
Because I come to that. I'm a motivational speaker. In fact, my book is coming out, The Winning Formula, 52 Ways.
What's the question?
Yeah, question is, at the same time, I'm an optimist. At the same time, I'm plagued by this thought that the human species is the most wicked species on the face of the earth.
Most
Wicked species on the face of the earth. So I'm an optimist on the one hand. I'm a motivational speaker. I speak to a lot of people. But I've been plagued by this. We are the most wicked species, and I keep telling my kids the best thing that can happen to the universe, to the planet Earth, is that the human species should disappear. How do you reconcile being an optimist, at the same time being hugely plagued by this thought the human species is absolutely evil, he must disappear?
Okay, so I do not subscribe to what you're saying at all. I think we are paradoxical. We are contradictory, and we are
Oxymoronish.
no, we are paradoxical. Paradox, contradiction, ambiguity is the source of our creativity. Other species are programmed, they're algorithms. So we, metaphorically, the fall from grace, in Christianity, eating the apple of good and evil is actually our self-awareness that makes us creative and diabolical at the same time. So we are cursed and we are blessed at the same time. And I think that's the way it should be. That if we understand that we are cursed and blessed at the same time, we would be creative. We would be algorithms. The only difference between a monkey and you and I, less than 1% DNA. And that 1% is the evolutionary leap we have taken. So I would say paradox, ambiguity, contradiction is our essential nature. Freud said the definition of neurosis is the inability to tolerate ambiguity. The definition of neurosis is right and wrong, good and bad, and you take one position when there is no position to take.
You know, he said this to me in a private conversation, and I gifted him a book called Humankind by Dr. Rutger Bregman, who basically, sir, said, the young Dutch philosopher, about 40, not even 40, I think he's 38, and he's done research over the last 150 years. He's gone and spoken to people who survived very stark realities, and they were saved by very kind human beings in the stories. And he basically debunks the notion that, you know, what Hariri says, that, you know, human beings claw into each other. So he says they are paradoxical. They're very kind.
But that makes it interesting, right? That we have infinite stories to share.
Yes, so I think you should read that book again, sir. Short questions and one question. Yeah, we'll...
Yeah. Thank you very much. Sir, my question is, it seems, I repeat, it seems that technology is growing faster than our own biological evolution. And it also seems, again I repeat, it seems that we will not be able in future, we will not be able to keep pace with the technology. So I want an answer, one, whether technology is really growing faster than our own biological evolution. If yes, how we will deal with technology in the future?
I've emphasized many times that the human species is different from other species because we are tool makers, which began with the discovery of fire and, you know, flintstones as knives, now AI and technology. So that and our ability to tell stories and create models is what distinguishes us. So therefore, technology is part of our evolution and we cannot stop it. If you try to stop it, you will become irrelevant, absolutely irrelevant. It's like a child that is born cannot return to the womb. Once you learn to walk, you cannot unlearn to walk. When you learn to speak, you cannot unlearn to speak. You're born from the womb, you cannot return. So once technology is there, either you adapt or you become irrelevant and extinct. That's fact number one. It's a Darwinian principle, you know, adaptation of species, survival of species. So number one, technology is unstoppable. Number two, technology is neutral. Okay. You can create war with technology. You can create a more peaceful, just, sustainable, healthier, and joyful world. You can cure diseases. You can get rid of, when I went to the United States, believe it or not, in 1970, there was no TV in Delhi. I had never seen a TV. Or if there was, I had not seen it. First time I saw TV was in 1970. And now where we are, emails, this, that, Instagram. So technology is unstoppable. It's also neutral. We are not victims of technology. We are creators of technology. How we use it depends on us. Now, unfortunately, we use it badly because of the hypnosis of social conditioning. The social mindset is more interested in gossip Okay, that's what Bollywood is. I read a newspaper, I don't read news. Maybe your newspapers are different, but most newspapers are gossip. Even news is gossip. You know, I've traveled the world. Al Jazeera has different news, BBC has different news, Fox has different news. Whose news do you want to believe? It's all gossip. It's all fake. Okay. But it makes money. And so does Bollywood make money, and so does weapons make money, and then people are drawn to that. If you want to know what the distress of the human race is, follow the money. That's it. Okay. Now, biological evolution is very interesting. There's social evolution and there's biological evolution. Social evolution moves fast, leapfrogs. Biological evolution takes time. But with technology now, you know, knowing what we know of epigenetics and how experiences change, technology is rewiring our neural networks through epigenetics now, as we are. So I believe, and this you don't have to buy my belief because it's just my opinion, and that we are on the verge of
Switch over.
going from human to meta-human. I have a book on that, meta-human, which is the next evolution of the human species. And that is an optimistic view. It may not be realistic. But I think we're there. We're on the cusp of a major leap in biological evolution. Yes, there's a question right in the middle.
The gentleman here, and then Pritika will come to you. Go ahead.
Thank you very much for the splendid talk, Anurag and Dr. Chopra. During your conversation, you talked about karmic entrapment. Can you elaborate on that, and can you direct us how one can avoid? We all are living in that one, at least one entrapment in karmic form. How we can get away?
I'll start with a quote from the Upanishads which says, the mystery of karma is unfathomable.
Thank you.
So we start with that. But what is karma is the conditioned mind, okay? You're born, as soon as you're born, you say, your name is Deepak, you're a Hindu, you're from a Punjabi family, this is your economic status, this is what you should go, you know, become a doctor, engineer, whatever. You're screwed now for the rest of your life. That is karmic entrapment. You're trapped in a mindset that you think is real, and there's nothing outside the mindset. So the Sufi poet Rumi has a poem. He says, why do you stay in prison when the door is wide open? The door of karma is wide open, but you cannot see the door because it's invisible. It's all the context, the meanings, the stories that you have heard from your parents, who heard them from their parents, who heard them from their parents, and on, you know, and it is unfathomable to a sense. You know, when I went to the United States, I was 23 and my wife was 21, and the chief of medicine called me, who was also, you know, my chief of medicine, but he was also Rita's doctor. She was pregnant, and he said to me, he said, your wife has thalassemia. And I was familiar, even as a medical student, because I'd seen cases. And I said she couldn't. She would be dead if she had thalassemia. She's pregnant and she's totally healthy. He said, come, see the cells. So remember, there was no AI, there was no Google. I went and saw the cells, and they looked thalassemic, you know, and I was totally confused. What is going on? So we went to the New York Library. I spent 3 days, and I discovered that the thalassemia trait existed along the exact route that the armies of Alexander took 323 BC from Macedonia to Multan, all the way to India. And so somewhere 2,300 years ago, some invader had raped an ancestor of my wife. And that footprint of that karma was in her blood right now and is in my children. So it's too big a mystery to even fathom. The only way to get out of that karmic trap is, once again, karma yoga, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga, and Hatha yoga, or what we call, 8 limbs of yoga, which is complete prescription to get you out of the karmic trap if you follow it. But most people don't.
Yes, sir. You've been wanting.
I'm Dr. C.S. Arora. I have a question on the emergence of artificial intelligence and your views on what implications does the emergence of artificial intelligence have on the collective well-being and spiritual growth of human beings.
Read the book.
This is what the book is. This is what the book is. Totally.
So maybe short answer.
Short answer is it's augmented human intelligence. There is nothing artificial in the world. We're all created by us and we are part of nature. So it's augmented human intelligence. And in the book, what I'm saying, the future is use it for reflection, inquiry. What is Atma Shakti? Use it as a health coach, use it as a mental coach, use it as a research assistant, and now use it as your spiritual guide.
Thank you.
Pratika, and you can go, okay. Roel, then do it in advance.
Just a quick question, Dr. Chopra. I'm a staunch believer in the survival of the fittest. Is human life and life in general all about survival of the fittest?
No, it's about survival of the wisest.
You mean wives?
Namaste, sir.
Human evolution is about survival. It's called metabiological evolution.
Namaste, Dr. Chopra.
Namaste.
I'm really grateful to Dr. Batra for inviting us for the session. So my question is, the term FOMO, which is fear of missing out, is so popular nowadays, and somewhere I see this term is practiced in everybody's life. We live in metros. It is so difficult for us to stay calm in the hustle bustle of the busy lives. So how can we fix this and come over the FOMO?
So FOMO, everybody I presume knows fear of missing out. Replace it with the joy of missing out. Okay, I love it when I miss out because what you're missing out is just the conditioned mind, adding karma.
And life is a trade-off. If you're missing out on something, you're also gaining on something. So clearly there is...
Joy of missing out. JOMO is the formula, not FOMO.
Hello. Hi. Very good morning, sir. This is Aishwarya Kapoor. I've just joined the Supreme Court of India and I've written my first book. I'm also a classical opera singer. So I just have one question. Adding on to the Shiva belief, would we presume the fact that how do you as a person presume was Shiva present 50,000 years back, considering that you have money right now and you realized that some person raped an ancestor and you have the resources to get them to the hospital and do research. Was Shiva paid to do research 50,000 years back, or was he not there at all?
Shiva is pure consciousness. Okay? And Shakti is the modulations of pure consciousness. Shiva is not a person. Okay? In fact, there is no person in the deeper reality. So what we call liberation is not of the person, it's from the person. Money is a human construct that makes it possible for us to negotiate experience. Without money, I wouldn't be able to travel here. I wouldn't have been able to get an education. And you wouldn't be a clerk in the, or whatever, Supreme Court. So money is like latitude and longitude. It's like Greenwich Mean Time. It's a human construct that makes life negotiable in what we call the collective dreamscape, where we are all fictional characters. And some fictional characters are rich, some are poor. The world's a stage and everyone's playing a part.
Harvinder? Okay.
So I just wanted to ask if the soul is potentially divine and there is human possibilities which is there, and you quoted Ashtanga Yoga for Patanjali. So what happens during this, if the framework all exists, why is the world changing? If it is all potentially divine, and each one of us the single soul and that's one Atman, what is changing? What we call the soul is consciousness.
in today's language, okay? And that is not in space-time. That is not so in space-time. So the soul, or what you call the soul, or common language, what we call soul, Jivatma, or however we frame it, is not in space-time. The experience is in space-time. Okay? It is infinite, and it is not affected by its manifestations. It is supreme, pure, unblemished, untarnished, not affected by his presence. Try to give you an analogy. Think of a screen, your television screen. And theoretically, you have subscription to Netflix, Doordarshan, whatever. You have infinite programs there. Some you enjoy, some are tragic, some this, that, the other. But the screen is not affected by what is appearing on the screen. So your soul, what we call, yes, it's divine. It's not affected by its manifestations, which is mind, body, soul. Now, because it is infinite, it can't exclude anything. Otherwise, it won't be infinite. Okay? So it contains every possible expression. And every possible expression, from divine to diabolical to everything in between. The key to realize this is that if you go back from your sensory experience of the world, which is telling you this is the show right now, that was the show yesterday, this is the show tomorrow, but I am independent of the show, then that is called liberation. That is called moksha.
Yeah. So one question.
Thank you so much. Dr. Bart Fisher is here, so I'd like to acknowledge his presence. He's come from the years. He's a leading legal attorney, he's two-time Nobel Prize nominee, and he's leading a movement called the H2O movement. So thank you for being here, Dr. Fisher.
So one question.
Yes.
This is there is something called digital isolation. So
It's
how do
called
you,
what?
digital isolation.
Digital isolation.
Digital detox.
Yeah.
How do you thrive socially in an era of digital isolation? And how do you find a balance between benefiting from technology and minimizing its effects? I mean, the isolating effects of the same.
It's so interesting. We create something, then we want to escape from what our creation is. So that's where the question comes from. Set apart some time for digital technology every day, and then use it at that time. But whatever set time, there's eating time, there's, for me, yoga time, there's meditation time, there's relationship time, there's technology time. And then you can, depending on your need, you say, okay, morning, half an hour, afternoon, half an hour, evening, half an hour, and you get everything done. It's not the amount of things that you need to do, but the quality of awareness that you bring to what you do. So if you bring your full awareness to what you're doing, there's no future, there's no past, there's no stress, and there's no digital isolation. But all that we see as the problems of the world, we have created them. So, we create the problem, then we say, how do we solve the problem? And what do you say, how do you get socially engaged? Who says you need to be socially engaged all the time? It only adds to your madness.
Dr. Deepak Chopra, you spoke about language, and you said that there is something which is silence, which is also a part of a language, and then there are beautiful words that are spoken, and these could be spoken to anyone else or to yourself. Let me take a condition where people are dealing with something like a cancer, and I've been having this conversation with a lot of survivors, with patients, spiritual masters, and have realized that beyond a doctor, beyond a medicine, there is a lot of activity that happens within a person, within the patient. what do you think we can equip a patient with so that they are able to derive strength to go fight a condition like cancer and choose to live when the facts and the numbers are beyond, the facts are different?
The role of mind in curing something.
Yeah, there are many questions in that question. So, the role of language. I said there are many questions in that one question. So, language, before a word emerges as speech, it actually exists in 4 stages. The first stage is called in Sanskrit para, second is pashyanti, third is madhyama, and fourth is vekhari. It's the emergence of language from a field of infinite possibilities into a cloud of probabilities until it collapses as a wave function which becomes speech and action. It's exactly quantum mechanical. So people who know use to language, who know how to use language, they press the pause button before they speak, okay? And they ask themselves, is it necessary? Is it useful? Is it elevating? Is it going to cause anxiety? Because speech is one of the most powerful expressions of humankind. In fact, in the Eightfold Path to Enlightenment, right speech is one of the paths to enlightenment, according to the Buddha. So language is very useful. Silence is the origin of language. Okay, silence is where it starts. But if you don't cultivate silence, your speech could be harmful. Now coming to cancer. Cancer is a modern term for a cell that is multiplying at the cost of the rest of the other cells. Okay. In fact, cancer is the ultimate egocentric response of the cell. It's on a quest for immortality at the cost of the rest of the body. It's lost its memory of wholeness. In biology, there's a term called apoptosis, programmed cellular death. If a cell doesn't die, it's a cancer cell. So cancer is the loss of the memory of death. Okay? Because without death, there's no resurrection. Without death, without entropy, there's no recreation. Your cells in your body are dying all the time. Your stomach cells are dying every 5 days. And if they didn't, then you wouldn't be able to digest food because your stomach cells would become leathery. Okay? Your immune cells die every 120 days. Your bone cells die every 3 months. Even the DNA, which holds memories of millions of years of evolution, the actual cells, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, they come and go every 6 weeks. So the body is constantly dying, constantly recycling. You can say, metaphorically speaking, the stomach cells die every 5 days, but it doesn't forget the memory of how to digest food. So what is reincarnating is memory. Okay? Now, when it comes to a cancer patient, what we do as physicians is something quite dangerous. It's called the nocebo effect. Okay, I was in Australia many, many years ago. This is over 30 years ago. And I was asked to come to a council in a legislative body where in the Australian Aborigines, there's a custom called pointing the bone. So if you belong to this Aborigine tribe and you don't like your there's an enemy that you have, you go to your witch doctor and you say, get rid of this enemy for me. So the witch doctor takes a kangaroo bone and he dances around a fire. Of course, he's all dressed up like a shaman, pandit, and then he recites some Aborigine mantras. Then he tells his customer, you can point the bone now to your enemy, Within 24 hours, the enemy starts to have nausea and vomiting. In 48 hours, the enemy is dehydrated. In 1 week, the enemy is dead. And all that has been done is pointing the bone. Okay, now what do we do as doctors? Mrs. Smith or Mr. whatever, you have cancer, you have 3 months to live. That's pointing the bone. If he believes you, then he'll be dead in 3 months. Now, what we say in medicine, or we should be saying, is believe the diagnosis, but do not believe the prognosis. Because prognosis is a statistical probability based on past experience. It's like saying the average temperature in New Delhi for the year is 22 degrees centigrade. Doesn't tell me what the temperature is right now. Okay, so the statistic doesn't apply to a patient, but yet we use it. Okay, or you say the average income of so and so in New York City is 100,000. Doesn't tell me what your income is, even though you live in New York City. So prognosis is a very dangerous thing to prognosticate in medicine, and yet we are taught that in science, in current science. The best thing for a doctor to do is be very accurate about the diagnosis, and today we have the resources to see today. Somebody sent me the other day a patient record. I have a patient, a doctor actually sent me pancreatic cancer, cirrhosis of the liver, and mets to this and this, and is he a candidate for transplant? And they've got many opinions. I took the record, cut and pasted, I went to AI, I looked up all the resources. In 5 minutes, I knew what are the chances of this patient. But even that is inaccurate, okay? Because you cannot predict. One of the principles in quantum mechanics is what is called uncertainty. So the fundamental level, the future is unpredictable. You might say, oh, what about Jyotish, this and that? That's also probabilities, mathematical probabilities, and that's why you say, okay, you know what your future is, but you can change it. Okay, you do this upaya or whatever. So, and the rituals that are actually change your mindset, get you out of that karmic trap. So it's complicated, but it's a good question actually. Because language doesn't describe, language creates. Language does not describe reality. Language creates reality.
And Deepak, my question is, you did talk about 5 senses. What about the 6th sense that a lot of people talk about?
6th sense is intuition. Or you can say your mind is your 6th sense. Okay, but again, 5 senses we talk about are a very narrow band of electromagnetic activity. So your visual spectrum is 300 to 800 nanometers. Now there are other species, snakes for example, that navigate their reality through infrared. And there are insects that navigate reality through ultraviolet. And there are bats that navigate reality, or so-called reality, through the echo of ultrasound. So what is reality? No such thing. It's a species-specific sensory experience.
And while we'll take all the questions, there is digital Deepak.ai. So if you feel like asking questions,
by the way,
once you're back in the US.
No, actually, the session should be over. You can ask my digital twin any question, and you'll get a punacha. Please come for a second if you can. Is the internet working?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Who's the next question, please? Microphone.
I'm Ankur. I want to ask, since we started the race of technology development from Stone Age and we have reached the AI.
Say that again?
We started from Stone Age, we reached artificial intelligence.
Yes, technology.
Yeah.
Stone Age was also technology.
Yeah, like from enlightenment of fire, we found fire. So, do you think it's time for us to stop and think, rethink that this technology race has developed so much stress in humans? So we should stop and think that we should take a rest here?
You will, if you take a rest, you'll become obsolete because technology will go on. It's part of our evolution. Either adapt or become.
As he's all along said, it's a tool. Use it to get better.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Dr. Deepak and Dr. Anurag. It has been very pleasure to hear both of you.
Good question, sir.
Yeah, so we had the question that can technology enhance conscious living or does it primarily serve as a distraction? And do you think that AI will damage the human existence? And this is the question which is all over the internet, all over there. So what do you think on it?
It depends on how we use it. So it could damage, and it could also create a new paradigm where we could focus, use technology for a more peaceful, just, sustainable, healthier, and joyful world. And it's not intelligent, even though we call it artificial intelligence. It's large language models that access the human database and human knowledge. But, my former digital twin, my new digital twin is the new incarnation. My former digital twin was on CNN a few years ago, and the host asked, it looked just like me. You can tell the difference. So what did you eat for breakfast? He said, I don't feel hungry. I don't have sex and I don't fear death. So it has no subjectivity, which is the definition of consciousness. And to some extent, the definition of sentience. While it can simulate that, it is not intelligent. It just takes information and data and knowledge and creates context out of it.
Dr. Mahajan wants to ask a question.
Dr. Chopra, Harsh Mahajan, I'm a radiologist, and recently we've published in Nature a paper on Yoga Nidra using functional MRI and showing between novices and practitioners the difference and showing really that while you're aware and awake, your mind is asleep if you practice Yoga Nidra in the MRI scanner. What are your thoughts on this?
It's brilliant. Congratulations on the study, because as you know, in yoga, depending on the interpretations and the system you follow, there are many states of consciousness. So we are right now in the waking state of consciousness, which technically speaking is the least connected to the source of consciousness, waking state, which is a lucid dream in a vivid now. This is a lucid dream. In 5 minutes, when you walk out, this will be a dream. Okay. So that's first stage of consciousness. Second stage of consciousness is dream state, where everything becomes ambiguous, cloudy. And then the third is deep sleep, which is actually most non-local. It's the most intelligent state of sleep. Now, if you practice Yoga Nidra, which is a great way, sooner or later, and if you practice yoga in general, sooner or later, you will have the experience of what is called Turiya, okay, the third stage of consciousness, transcendence. And that is a state of much higher intelligence, okay? Then there is something called Turiya Tatta, which means you are local and non-local at the same time. It's in many traditions it's called cosmic consciousness, local and non-local. Then there's something beyond Turiya Tatta, Bhagavad Chetna, where the divine is apparent in every experience, and then there's Brahmi Chetna, which is liberation or whatever you want to call it. So each of these states has its corresponding neural correlates, its corresponding biological correlates, including immune function, everything. So your paper is a brilliant insight into how states of consciousness determine states of biology. And what you're describing is a wakefulness, even though the body and mind are asleep. That's actually beyond Turiya, it's Turiya Tatta. And that's the kind of research we need. This morning, actually, Punacha showed me a study that just came out, I haven't looked at it, where people communicate in dreams, okay? And that's very interesting because that suggests quantum entanglement. Okay, when you can communicate in dreams with another person, that's quantum entanglement. Now, in 2012, we did a study on a week-long course that we had, and it involved a lot of yoga, a lot of meditation. And now that, which institution are you, sir?
Mahajan Imaging, which is definitely the best.
This was a study which was done with the IIT All India Institute and
Okay. Okay, so now
Best diagnostic chain in the
perfect. So All India Institute, I know, has the technology. We did a study in 2000, actually before 2012. We took advanced meditators, but they were also emotionally and spiritually bonded. So it was a mother or a child or brother, sister, husband, wife, whatever, significant other. After 1 week of course, we separated them. We put them in Faraday chambers. Okay, so let's say Lucy is in this Faraday chamber, John is in that Faraday chamber, and they're in two separate buildings, although we did it in the same building. And we used what is called evoked potentials. So we took optic evoked potential. You know, if for everybody else, a Faraday chamber is where you don't get a signal. Your iPhone won't work. So we took them, we separated them, we took a flashlight, and you shine it in one person's eyes, both brains light up at the same time. And there is no signal involved. Okay, no signal. So this is quantum entanglement. That study was replicated by one other person in Germany, in Mexico, and then for some reason that person disappeared. I lost contact with him. And this is the time to do that study with your equipment, All India Institute. It can be done here easily. This is biological evidence of entanglement.
Dr. Chopra, I have a question. Listening to you, you said this sleep state is the most powerful state.
Deep state is non-local.
Yeah. So these days there's a lot of talk about manifestation, and they say the best time to manifest is just before you go to sleep, because that stays in your consciousness for longer. What do you have to say about that?
It's, this manifestation and law of attraction has gotten too much wrong publicity. All you should do is ask yourself before you sleep, what do I want? And wake up in the morning and see what comes up. That's it. Or if you're studying for an exam, then before you sleep, you say, I want to remember what I studied. And in the morning, you will feel. So actually, people who sleep well perform very well in their exams, and they do appear to be more comfortable with fulfillment of desire. But you're fulfilling your desire all the time. You're sitting here right now because you wanted to, right? So we are manifesting all the time. There's no special formula. The universe moves from singularity into maximum diversity. That's manifestation.
And then why do some of the desires or dreams don't happen?
It depends. In this case, you have to trust that nature knows more about what you need than you know. You say, I want a lot of money. Next thing is in the middle of a divorce, because now you're fighting about the money. So, you should be very careful in what you want, because if your wants are coming from a very personal, egocentric desire, it will either manifest or cause you distress.
Dr. Chopra, how do you say egoless? I see you for the kind of stature you have, the kind of name you have, the kind of knowledge, most importantly.
It's very easy to stay egoless if you listen to your wife and your children. They don't take you seriously. Okay? They will remind you every day So just
That one I know, sir.
Okay.
I think then I can be egoless very much. Some of my friends have met my wife and my children, so that was an easy answer. My last question, I'd say, how do you prepare? You seem to read a lot. Of course, you meet the right people, you ask the right prompts, and we have tools. How do you upgrade yourself? What is your daily routine like?
Well, I don't think it's practical for most people, but I'm 78, at least chronologically. So I spend 3 hours to 4 hours every day in yoga, silence, and meditation. And I do yoga nidra at night. So I usually don't start working till 11. I never work after 5 unless it's for a special friend like Brij Bakshi. Otherwise, I don't work after 5, and I don't work on weekends, and I really value my silence. That is where I get my books from.
Beautiful. And I have to ask this question. How much of your impact, achievement, success you attribute to universe, and how much to the practice and the discipline that you have?
I don't believe in hard work, exacting plans, or discipline. I don't believe. I think that's all stress. I think in effortless spontaneity, and the only way you can be effortlessly spontaneous is to be deeply rested and not take yourself seriously.
Okay. Beautiful.
She wants to ask
one or two more questions we'll take because, sir, Imani, here's the mic for you, sir. You're not a loud Punjabi from Delhi, so you need a mic.
Just extending on that, when did you realize that you don't need to be stressful, you don't need to take life seriously? When was that?
It's a process. I don't know. It's like a fruit ripening, and then one day it falls, and you say, "Oh, why didn't I get this before?"
What I meant was, after studying, was it, say, after 10 years, 15 years, 20 years in industry, you realized after?
No, see, I finished medical school here,
1969.
69. Then for 7 years or 8 years, I was doing internal medicine, endocrinology, totally stressed, 100% stressed. And then I finished that, and then I started a group practice, but I was also on the faculty, junior faculty, Harvard, Tufts, BU, etc., which was worse. And then I started getting interested in integrative medicine only because my mentor, who was president of the Endocrine Society, was an amazing person. He's now turned 101. I had breakfast with him 2 weeks ago. He's 101, and if he finds a snake in his garden, he dissects it to look at neuropeptides, even today. And he argues with everybody about consciousness and mind, brain, etc., Seymour Reichland, so I give him all the credit. But we were involved in studying the molecules of emotion, which right now everybody knows, serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, etc. And we didn't call them molecules of emotion, we just called them neuropeptides. And I had a colleague, she was brilliant, absolutely. She discovered the opioid receptor, which is in the brain, which responds to endorphins. And one day she said, these are molecules of emotion. So that is the moment that I actually said there's more to biology than we know. And then I heard rumors in my ecosystem of doctors that Deepak has gone crazy and that we should fire him, basically. So before they could fire me, I left and went to...
That was about age 45, right? You were about 46, 45, 46.
Yeah, well, the whole process started... No, I went to the US at 20.
Yeah, but
the training and all, I was 36 when things started to change for me. 36. And then I went to California. I said, California, they're more tolerant. Same thing happened. They said, he should be fired, etc. But then I had a few colleagues, so we started our own institute. And then I met Maharishi, and he said, you should write a book, which I had not thought of. I said, I don't have the money. He said, money will come from wherever it is at the moment. Just write a book on what you're sharing with me. And I actually self-published the book. Somebody placed it in the Harvard Coop, which is a bookstore, and it was a kid. And he gave it to his mother for a birthday gift. She happened to be an agent. She called me, she said, why is this book published by, this nonsensical publisher? I said, I couldn't find a publisher. She said, how much did you spend? I said, 5,000. She gave me 5,000. The book became a bestseller. Next thing I knew, Jackie Onassis was calling me, and Stephen Hawking's author was calling me, and then life took off. So it was a process. But I would say in my mid-40s, 50s, the old world was gone for me.
And sir, who are the people you look up to for inspiration? You have very famous friends. Oprah is your friend. Are there people who you enjoy a conversation where you learn something, or there's inquiry, or whose concepts? Is there any other book that you'd recommend from your own book, apart from your own?
I used to always go back to Krishnamurti and Freedom from Being Known and, the first and last freedom, but I don't enjoy that anymore. It's kind of antiquated. We have a conference that we do. We just finished
in September in Harvard.
Yeah, it's called Sages and Scientists. So we bring thought leaders from every field, including astrobiology, physics, science, philosophy, and actually we're now going to do a conference with the All India Institute, Sages and Scientists, in February of 2026. February 13th, 14th. You can register starting tomorrow. So that's it. I don't believe there's any one person who can give you everything that you would want to know or desire to know. But if you harness the collective creativity that's around, you can learn from a lot of people.
We'll take the last two questions and wrap it up. Sunil, one question from you, and Himani, who's worked with me to create this event, also wants to ask. But first, Sunil, he's a chef, and he's very creative. I'll leave it.
So, being a chef, my question will obviously be around food. How much role does food play in your conscious living?
I mentioned earlier, we have 25,000 human genes. We have 2 million to 20 million bacterial genes. So technically speaking, we are a bacterial colony, a few human cells hanging on to a bacterial colony. We are the awakening of bacterial consciousness. So if you respect your gut and the bacteria, you will be a happy person, healthy. The best food is maximum diversity of plant-based foods, which means 7 colors of the rainbow, 6 tastes of life, sweet, sour, salt, but bitter, pungent, and avoiding anything that's manufactured, refined, processed, or ultra-processed, or refined sugar. You can change your microbiome within 6 weeks. So food is the key to health and well-being, both physically and mentally, because these microbes produce things like GABA, gamma-aminobutyric acid. They produce serotonin, and these are the microbes in your gut that you need for your mood as well. So food affects mood, biology at every level. Most important thing. That's where, by the way, Ayurveda begins. A happy gut is a happy brain.
Beautiful.
In general, we eat too much and we eat the wrong things.
Good afternoon, Dr. Chopra. So, since we were talking about karma, my question comes from there. Can karma be understood as a form of justice, or is it more about our personal growth?
I hate to use moralistic terms because then you get complicated into religion and all that. Think of karma as an echo from the past. Okay? So every action that you take sets off a chain of events that results in something. So I would say before you make choices, if you make them consciously, what are the implications of this choice? Because every choice is a timeline. Okay, I make a choice, whatever choice. You say, let me have one drink, then let me have two, or whatever. Choices. Should I say such and such thing to such and such person? I remember my mother one day, we were inviting a group of guests, and she said, no, not this person. I said, why not this person? She said something rude to me 20 years ago. So, I said, she's probably forgotten it and is still holding on. So that is what karma is, holding on to an experience that is not relevant anymore. And it's conditioning of the mind.
In 80s, Karma used to be a popular movie. I watched it, but you don't watch movies. Why you don't see?
I saw Oppenheimer because I wanted to know the mind of these guys who created the atom bomb. Brilliant and diabolical at the same time.
Sarina will give you the last question.
Yes, thank you so much. Always a pleasure seeing you. And Dr. Chopra, I have something which I've always, especially when I saw Digital Dharma, I wanted to ask you, how do you see the intersection of spirituality and technology evolving through this concept? And do you believe that digital platforms play a collaborative role in the consciousness? Do you think
the book is about that.
It is about,
Yeah.
but this is something which encapsulates the spirit of our basic Indian, I would say, concept, right? So is that how by reading, that's what I would understand?
It's a tool. You write to ask you questions and it guides you into what the available knowledge in humanities about spiritual traditions. Don't expect a digital technology to give you self-realization or moksha. It only is a map, and the map is not the territory.
But use it in the right way.
Of course.
Yes. Thank you.
Since a lot of questions are about the digital dharma, we have Mr. Pranasya Machaya here, so we'd give you some time to be able to talk about we couldn't demonstrate
Actually, you can demonstrate something, right?
It'll be useful for people who want to ask. I asked him
By
how
the way,
many
you don't
questions.
need the book. You can just go on your browser and...
Yeah, some people are asking as much as 300 questions a day, but average is 10 questions a day on the app. He can tell you
So
more.
I think just once again, just the question you had was that we launched an AI platform called Digital Deepak, and we've analyzed his 90 plus books, his YouTube videos, and continuously learning. And our goal, as Dr. Chopra said, is to become a well-being assistant. So this, you can ask a question in Hindi, English, Spanish, and eventually goes on multiple languages. So example, you can go test it out yourself. I asked a question, what is digital dharma? I think you were asking that question. And what we can do is actually give you the AI. We'll actually give you the voice also, right? You can ask any question you want. We'll try to connect over here. But once again, he can ask questions from his books, from his biology. And our goal eventually is to kind of connect it to your health records. So example, if you're wearing a Apple Watch or a Garmin or Aura or Ultra Human, basically we'll connect and go back and say, okay, you haven't slept so much. So here is either a breathing, a meditation, a yoga nidra. But then we're going to go one step further. We're working in the All Industry of Medical Sciences to look at your health records. And so then go back and look at your health records and go back and say, this is if you are got metabolic syndrome or you have issues with your health. We can then look at what we call life event ontology. At home, at work, at play, on the road. So goal is then to look at everything from, if you go to a therapist, you say, I'm kind of have an issue with my relationship. The first thing they'll say, they look at your breath work, right? They look at your pupil dilation. You look at your facial micro expressions, your gait, and then your calendar, the meetings. All that is pretty much done on your phone and now with AI. So eventually our goal is to create a complete digital twin. So you can be like Bridge at cyberhuman.ai. So our goal is to kind of create this constant companion on the road. So give it a shot, give it a try, digitaldeepak.ai. And any feedback. I'm just trying to get my network connection here. So just hold on to this. Let me ask a question. So I guess the question I asked is, what is digital dharma, right?
answer here. So I'll just give a short answer. It says Digital Dharma is a platform that combines ancient wisdom and modern technology. It also has a voice interface, and I'm just trying
Digital Dharma is a platform that combines ancient wisdom and modern technology. It provides an avenue for interaction on topics such as health, well-being, spirituality, and philosophy. It utilizes AI to promote ethical growth and enhance spiritual comprehension.
So this is basically what I'm not typing Hindi. One second, what I'll just keep speaking to you. What I'm going to go to Google Translate.
Right now it's in 4 languages, Hindi, English, and Spanish and Arabic, soon in Chinese, but it accesses my books and then it gives you the answer, and then it's something that only Punacha can explain, the RAG model, where it updates information from sources that are current.
So the typical question I think you guys were asking was, what is consciousness, right? So one thing I'll go back and ask the AI the same thing, because Deepak typically says,
You know, there's so many questions people ask me, and I'm really, sometimes I land up repeating myself many times.
This has much more patience than I have.
look, let me just hold this, let me just copy the text.
Yeah, so
Deepak, since I have the mic and, the AI is still trying to catch up with you.
The AI is not catching up, the network.
Yes. No. Yes. But, fantastic and really deep, so many intersections of thought. I was just thinking that, why does joy matter? Because ultimately when we're talking about a property-less universe, even at the level of a kind of divine or transcendent experience, why does joy matter?
So
Because
can I
that's
answer
still
that before you do, because I'm an expert. My wife's company is called Joy Travels, so joy matters. But on a serious note, so you can answer.
So joy is not the same thing as happiness, okay? Happiness is the opposite of sadness. Joy is independent of both happiness and sadness. It's a natural, fundamental state that you see in children before they're bamboozled into social constructs. So if you look at a child, unless it's hungry or it's wet, it's joyful. It's a natural state, and it's the state of extreme homeostasis, self-regulation. Does it matter? Nothing matters. And that's literal. Nothing matters. Matters is a verb. Nothing becomes everything.
So I think the question I was asking is, what is consciousness? So my Hindi typing is not that great, so I go to Google Translate. So Chetna kya hai? So this is the answer.
चेतना एक अनुभव है जो हमें अपने अस्तित्व और विचारों की अनुभूति कराती है। ये हमारे भीतर की जागरूकता है जो हमें स्वयं को और हमारे आसपास की दुनिया को समझने में मदद करती है।
You can ask in any, and also has a language translation, so once again, depending on the network, it actually picks up better.
So you never thought of becoming a Hollywood actor? With your voice and looks?
Everybody is an actor.
No, I'm married for 24 years.
Some people get paid for it, and they suffer because they're always worried about how much they'll get paid. But if you're an actor and you're not getting paid for it, you're happy.
I said last few weeks, personally, my mother's been in the hospital. I've seen the healthcare system, and me and Harvinder were talking, and I'm very empathetic to doctors. They do their best. But I also feel it has become commercial. It has become, in my case, I would say they spend time and all that, but it's become commercial. Is there a way out of this?
Everything is commercial. What is not commercial? Tell me one thing that is not commercial in your life. The world runs on commerce, okay? Now, commerce means exchange of values. So you should decide what are your values and engage with people who have similar values. But everything is commerce. The world is, once we discovered the idea of money, then we once again deviated from all other species. So I don't think what your question should be, can we have a more compassionate way of exchange? And the answer is yes. But, again, it's all, unfortunately, the health industry, the food industry, and the weapons industry is all run by special interest groups. So I don't know the answer.
Please give Dr. Deepak Chopra a big round of applause. You can give him a standing ovation, They say sitting is the new smoking. So, and there are books outside. I would request Mr. Punata to come up on stage. Mr. Bakshi, if we can have a copy of his book. Yes. There are enough books he can sign and, Mr. Bakshi. Mr. Punacha, you can hold this. Just hold it. You hold it. You will hold it. No, I have one.
How you were with